welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you, Tom, on this beautiful Wednesday, autumn in Melbourne, nothing better.
Yes, autumn is the best season in Melbourne. It's sunny, the weather is very consistent, and it's the best time to visit this city.
We've got our 500 club footy lunch today up at the Grand Prix, which will be a great success.
Well, AFL season 2011 kicks off in precisely 1 day's time. Carlton play Richmond tomorrow night at the MCG. Yeah, they're hoping to get a crowd of 70 to 75,000, which again just shows that there was a big argument during the week as to which was the more popular sport, NRL or AFL. And the NRL says that per club they actually do better. The AFL says, well, overall we do better. The fact is, the NRL does not draw 70 to 80, in some cases 90,000 fans to home and away games.
Yes.
And the AFL does.
The NFL, the only time they get any people watching it on the television is when there's no AFL on.
Or state of origin, and that's the one thing that's interesting with the NRL. The home and away competition isn't so great, but the state of origin pulls an enormous crowd both to the games and TV. And the AFL gave up on state of origin more than a decade ago, and I've never really understood that.
Well, it wasn't working. Once they had a national competition, so you only play rugby really in two states. So they had New South Wales versus Queensland. We had South Australia, West Australia, because all these clubs were playing, you know, in the football, all the South Australia, West Australia, etc. I think they're still looking at having one carnival every 4 or 5 years and having a state of origin carnival, which I think would be a good thing. All the players want it.
Yeah, the players would like it, but the clubs, of course, don't want their players to get injured. But the point about the NRL state of origin is great. You see, from the one club, players on the Queensland side facing up against their club colleagues, but their opponents in state of origin, and they go berserk and they hit each other. And sometimes clubs end up with 6 players injured and so forth. And
but it has built a strong tradition, and that's why people love playing for their state.
They have.
Anyway, let's get on to more serious stuff. Well, first of all, I can't stand all the motorbikes being parked on the footpath. That Lord Mayor ought to be shot. Melbourne's looking more like Rome every day. People parking anywhere, whether it's bicycles, motorbikes. There wasn't a spare spot coming down from my office.
Yeah, curiously, I was at the dentist yesterday, as you can all see, and I had a chat with a motorbike rider who her appointment was the same time as mine, and she said, oh, it's fantastic on the bike when I just park on people's nature strips and whatever. And yes, the Lord Mayor, who's not your most popular person in Melbourne, seems to say this is all right. Having said that, if you're on a bike and not on a car, that does reduce the congestion from cars, so it's not all bad.
No, how was the Lord Mayor? He came out and said we've got a question whether Melbourne should have the Grand Prix. This was a few weeks ago. Why he was raising it beyond me, because Melbourne benefits a lot and costs him nothing as the Melbourne City Council. Now he's there embracing it. I mean, what a turncoat.
Well, I think there were two things. One is I think he went to something at Ron Walker's house, who heads up the Major Events Corporation and, of course, the Grand Prix. And Ron Walker
he doesn't any longer.
Would have said in no uncertain terms, you will support this. Secondly, of course, Robert Doyle loves to appear at events where young female models appear. Yes. And of course, the opportunity to line up with the so-called Foster's Grid Girls, or whatever they're called these days, just he couldn't pass that up. So if it was a choice between not lining up with the Grid Girls or having to stick to what he said about the Grand Prix, he chose to line up with the Grid Girls. Now he's supporting the Grand Prix.
He's unbelievable. Right, let's talk about more serious things. Libya, what do you make of it all?
Well, the Western intervention, they're saying, has gone well. We speak, of course, of the no-fly zone, which includes bombing of all Libya's air defence sites and so forth. But you know what? My feeling on this is it's very rare that air power has ever sorted out an issue. Now, exceptions include
except when one party's got it and the other one hasn't.
Well, that's true, but if you look through the history of warfare, in the Vietnam War, I mean, the Vietnamese didn't have much air power, the Americans had heaps, but it didn't swing the tide of war.
They had tunnels.
Well, they did. The only time it's really worked, of course, is the atomic bombing of Japan, which brought the Japanese to their knees and led to a quick surrender, which is what it was supposed to do. In this case, my prediction is, and it's very hard to make predictions about these things, I reckon Gaddafi might hang on, and I think it's going to be very difficult for the Western powers and NATO to say, righto, well, we've imposed this no-fly zone, but Gaddafi's still in power, what do we do next? And people need to remember that in 1991, a no-fly zone was imposed over southern Iraq and over northern Iraq. So 2/3 of the country, Saddam Hussein couldn't fly. Yet, of course, he stayed in power for another 12 years until
That's because the Allies didn't force him out.
Well, and what I'm saying is, will the Allies do whatever it takes to force Gaddafi out? And I'm not certain they will.
Well, there's much more of an internal squabble. This has really started from the people in Libya wanting to get rid of Gaddafi. I tell you what, I reckon he could easily get the bullet somewhere. Someone might shoot him.
Well, maybe, but plenty of people have tried. All I'm saying is that I don't believe you should ever go into a conflict without an absolutely clear objective and without the overwhelming force to do so. The objective here is not to get rid of Gaddafi. Resolution 1973 from the UN simply says to protect the civilian population. Well, you know what? At some stage, some civilians will die from Allied bombing, and then the Libyans will say, well, you're not protecting us. And if you're not prepared to go in on the ground, I don't believe they should be going in at all.
Well, I think Gaddafi would have overrun them had they not gone in. They went in just in time. The problem now is they can't decide who's going to run it. The Americans don't want to run it, although they've started off running it. And now probably NATO's going to take over, but NATO, there are 29 countries in NATO.
That's right.
It's going to be very difficult to get agreement there. Well, I think the French and the British ought to run it together myself.
Well, see, the outside world, it just looks like a replay of both Gulf Wars. You've got, certainly Gulf War One, you had US led with the French and the British supporting. Gulf War Two, the French didn't participate, but the British did. Look, this is what I mean. You should never go into a conflict without things being clear. Things are not clear, and I'm simply saying I reckon there's a chance Gaddafi hangs on, no fly zone.
What do you think the odds are? I reckon it's 3-1. I reckon he's 10-1. He'll be thrown out.
I reckon it's more like 50-50. He stays in power.
No, I don't think that. No.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell.
The other issue they're talking about is they may divide the country into two.
Well,
and, the rebels don't want that, but whether that happens, I don't know.
Well, then that's what they did in Yugoslavia. I mean, you had the Balkanisation of the country. You had the old Yugoslavia split into all these little states with different ethnic and religious groups, and that really didn't help people very much either, and prolonged a conflict that might have ended far more quickly. So, the map of Africa is already divided up in plenty of weird and wonderful ways from the colonial era. I'm not sure drawing another line on the map again will sort issues out.
No, I agree with that. Now, the one thing that will occur, I think, because they've gone in against Gaddafi, the Allies, it will prolong the conflict. That means oil will not come out of Libya. That means the oil price will remain high, won't it?
Yeah, it will. Look, oil this morning is, in the US, it's $104 a barrel and appears to be rising, although where we are in this part of the world, we price off what they call the TAPIS price, which is out of Singapore. That's now $122 a barrel. And as you'll see in my market report, this is having a positive impact on oil share prices, but for motorists, petrol could easily go for $1.55 a litre, and that's standard unleaded in the next few days.
So that's a real worry. All right, there's the other important thing this weekend. We've talked about the footy. The Grand Prix is on. That'll get everybody's imagination up in Melbourne. The whole world will be looking at our wonderful city, and it's the first Grand Prix of the season.
But indeed, I noticed a lot of the billboards around Melbourne are saying, a hero returns home, and I thought, what does that mean? And of course, they're talking about Mark Webber, who, to be honest, did not grow up in Melbourne. He grew up, I think, in New South Wales. But anyway, he's the one Australian driver in the Formula One Championship, and obviously many people will be hoping that his team, Red Bull, does very well.
Well, I think they're favourites to win. Anyway, we'll see you all next week, and we'll know what the outcome is by then, and hopefully the Blues will beat Richmond tomorrow night.